I'm Arlene Disler, for any of you who just know me through email, which is probably a fair number of you. So glad you're here on this beautiful spring day. I am going to introduce Andy Burrows, who will be your MC throughout this. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlene. This is wonderful. This town it's suffering in some ways, but the fact that we were able to fill so many windows with poetry and then have so many of you turn out to read and to listen, thank you all. It's wonderful. I guess that's all I really have to say, other than this is wonderful, a great treat for me. And I'm so glad that we were able to, I know. I'd also like to say that we are the guests of the library, and the library has generously helped us print out some of the things that we passed out and put up around town. So let me start out by saying that the first person who will be reading is Daniel Guerra, and welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Guerra, and I'm going to read one poem today. January prose poem, Why Hot Toddies Remind Me of the Day My Brother Was Born. I'm in the Modesto Hospital cafeteria with my father, who squeezes a lemon into his drink. What was it? A Diet Coke, I think, or tea, and the acidic, uncouth juice vaults into his anxious, unsuspecting eyes. He curses, howls in pain while I laugh. I was 3 years, 1 month old, and not in the habit of practicing empathy and tact. I was not cognizant of the formidable pain my mother was in or where my sister was. Maybe she was with Grandma Judy and Grandpa Vernon in the lobby, or next to me in the cafeteria, laughing without abandon as well. Tonight, in Vermont, I make a hot toddy. I shield my eyes with my left hand while I squeeze the acerbic lemon with my right hand, 36 years after the arrival of my brother. He's in Orange County, 2,909 miles away. I miss him terribly tonight. I long to see him, go on a hike with him in the Santa Barbara Hills or the deserts of Joshua Tree. We'll discuss Marcus Aurelius, American military bases abroad, Lil Wayne mixtapes, and how excited I was on that day in January in the Modesto Hospital cafeteria. Thank you.
I love it. Spoken from the heart, I can tell. That was wonderful. Anne Gengarelly and Nancy Olson are working together on this one.
The first poem I'm reading is from Anne Gengarelly, who is very sad that she couldn't be here today. Slow dancing above the pond. How did we come to embrace the myth of certainty? Yes, dawn follows dusk, spring follows winter, with the doleful call of the phoebe as shadows lengthen across the fields. But what about our beloved sleeping beside us? Will he still hoist a rope to the stars and bring light to the flock of crows gathered around the bedside tomorrow? And the song pulsing from the earth, like notes bleeding from the throat of a flamenco singer, will that music always return to us? What about the breath of the rivers and streams as they wander to the sea? The breath that carries milkweed to a child's open hand? What about the breath of a 19-year-old that fades away like mist? Do they vanish or merge with the fog you saw yesterday, slow dancing above the pond, when you turned from the road and felt mystery bow down and hold your cheeks? And that is a poem from Anne's forthcoming book called Loss and Invention that will be out in October of this year. And this poem is displayed at Brattleboro Books. And this is my poem, Murphy High School, Atlanta, 1970. Wednesdays, dessert was oranges the students carried from the cafeteria through the ancient, musty wooden halls, peeling the fruit as they walked from lunch to class. The crisp scent of citrus filled dusty corridors, evoking in the body unacknowledged cellular connections to ancient eastern lands. Even today, as I ease my thumbnail under the skin at the stem end and begin to lift the peel, the pungent orange zest transports me, and I stand again by the classroom door, self-conscious of my whiteness in this throng of faces, many shades of brown and black, as students file in. So clearly I remember certain faces, certain names, and wonder how those lives unfolded in a country where their futures were and are held hostage. And that's displayed at everyone's books. Thank you to the bookstores.
We are on a roll. That was wonderful. Thank you very much. Next is Rolf Parker-Houghton, the founder of the Brattleboro University.
You never want to correct the MC, but it is the University of Brattleboro. And let's see here. The University of Brattleboro has a reading every third Thursday of every month at 6 o'clock at the Drawing Studio on William Street. And I won't say more about that, but I do see some people here who've been attending, and it's a good thing. Come. All right. So first, I'm going to read Ursula K. Le Guin at the Border. Has an alternative title, When is a Murder Mystery Not a Murder Mystery? So Ursula K. Le Guin at the Border. Ursula K. Le Guin, who died 5 years ago, told me in an essay that fantasy literature allows people to read stories of outrageous behavior without triggering the identity of nations people feel partisan about. So that compassion can sweep the reader into the caressing currents before they have a chance to resist that final, powerful tug of that great ocean, and their prejudice has a chance of getting washed off into the relief of grief. Outrageous behavior by Martians against the people of Pluto can be recognized by everyone as unacceptable, indefensible, unjust, and most importantly, avoidable. Bombs aren't just for maiming and killing people. They have other important purposes. And bombs aren't just dropped anymore, relying on some hotshot young ace pilot with excellent vision, a steady hand, and good aim. No, that's so December 1941. Bombs are guided by lasers now, and the reporter pointed out in 2021, it is no accident that they fell on Anthedon Harbor in Gaza, exactly where the archaeologists had been working on a World Heritage Site, a place where ancient Greek and Egyptian, then Philistine, then Byzantine, then Arab sailors displaced each other and docked their boats for more than 1,000 years and left their homes and their engraved stones. and even their bones, now all blown to bits by a bomb and then another bomb, craters replacing the carefully measured transect lines of the archaeologists. The news stories featured Palestinians outraged over what was done, and more importantly, who had done it. In 2022, on the West Bank, stones that formed a wall protecting what might be the oldest unhewn altar of the ancient Israelites were ripped out of the earth of Mount Ebal, ground into dust, and used to make cement for a sidewalk by a Palestinian road crew. The news story featured Israelis outraged over what had been done, and more importantly, who had done it. Ursula, I know I fucked it up by not setting this poem on Mars and just stealing it from the news in some attempt to frame perilous stories that'll be brushed aside by some readers as some attempt to create false equivalents. And these last lines are just a placeholder for the ones that allow some reader to cradle another's pain like a crying newborn they tenderly welcome into their lives. And now we'll switch to Hope. Indeed, this is entitled Hope. On his way to Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank, King Sigurd offered Saracens of Colaris the sacrament on the tip of a spear. If they took the sacred into their mouths, they lived. Otherwise, they took the iron point through the throat. For Sigurd was very much a Viking, and while also a Christian of some sort, he didn't really love his enemies as much as he loved killing them. He is famous for winning every battle and bringing back from Jerusalem a splinter of the true cross to Trondheim. But this is how we stumble forward. First, all the Viking converts had to be baptized, and granted, a mere dunk in the water didn't make a man less murderous. But hang on. They also had to give up sacrificing people to Odin. And yes, Sigurd still went on Viking raids, famously plundering parts of Portugal, but with time, raids and bludgeoning brains out of skulls was no longer acceptable behavior for warriors of a Norwegian king. Give it a few centuries and a few centuries more, and the Christian socialists of Norway were successfully demanding compassionate care for all. Sigurd didn't really know what he had started, and we can't know how much kinder we may become.
Next is Nichael Cramer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to read some short pieces that have been published over the last few months. The first is, and it's spring, so we need some spring poems. The first is a handful of haiku. Swatting at mosquitoes, my neighbor waves back. Swatting at mosquitoes, my neighbor waves back. Hearing the Phoebe, now I can plan all my day. Hearing the Phoebe, now I can plan all my day. This next one contains a slightly weird word, dabbling, that there are certain types of water birds that the way they feed is they go into like shallow water and they're swimming along and they'll upend themselves and eat from the bottom. That act is known as dabbling, and there are like mallards are known as dabbling ducks. March ducks, dabbling into, out of each world. March ducks, dabbling into, out of each world. Telling time, her hands move across my face. Telling time, her hands move across my face. I'm going to read a pair of short poems. The two poems aren't really connected as such, but they share the feature that each of them has an epigraph, a small quote at the top, that comes from the work of the poet Yehuda Amichai. So the first one, again, starting with the epigraph. Near the wall of a house painted to look like stone, I saw a vision of God. I spent this morning searching the book of his newly fashioned poems to find the word that might help name the dark band of the hummingbird which just flashed across the green of those hemlocks. And if there needs to be a difference, that will help me know which it is that has broken into song, the flight of that moving shadow, or a voice that has risen from a shining page. The second one, this is called Poem for Lenny, and again with the epigraph. What's this? This is an old tool shed. No, this is a great past love. At the fold of the fence that holds yesterday's mown lawn, below the window pane that blocks nothing beyond an early afternoon shower. Lifting it from the floor, the child places the spoke shave back on the hook from which it has fallen. So Andy, where are we time-wise? Okay. This is Charita. If you know that form, they're sort of haiku adjacent. They're, just as a haiku is meant to be very compact image, Charita is a very compact tale that tries to accomplish much the same thing. And it has 3 brief stanzas. Anyway, Spirit Air, a Charita. Serving the next passenger, the stewardess leans over me, now locked in a full and upright position. Thank you. This was great.
Thank you, Nichael. And as always, pithy. Next, our wonderful Verandah Porche, who has written so many poems, worked with poets all up and down the state of Vermont, and
That's good enough.
that's enough. I won't say anything more.
No, it's okay. I don't believe in introductions. Actually, I have 2 short poems, and they do have an introduction. The first one is called Ceasefire Sleep Spell, and it's based on my desire to have all combatants, in fact, all bellicose people just go to sleep. And here is the spell to go with it. A lullaby shushes the din of siege, asking skin to ease, mouth to drowse. Remember being held helpless by the first voice. Peace was a fragrance, lilac, lavender, jasmine, sweat, familiar as her hum, rocking while grieving, let no harm come. Though the bough broke on windy evenings, the mockingbird sang or was sold free. Drop the gun, the stone from a sling, roses and ashes fall in a ring, a call to the arms of Morpheus, darling, uncross your heart. That's the first poem. And this next song is called Spelling the News, and it's driven by my my obsession with spelling, of words within words. I mean, this is just, what's embedded in all of us. And so if you follow along, then you'll get what I'm talking about. Spelling the News. After the rage, in barrage and tragedy, the scar in miscarry and scarcity, the stolen rib in retribution. After the late cut across circumlocution, the reach and ache in treachery, the triumphal arch of patriarchy, after the pit in spite and capitalism, the silent oath below loathing, the hate embedded in whatever. Remember our stance, resistance to nest in greenest amnesty. As we age in any language, hear the heart. The use of a pause is the hum in humus, even posthumous. Here, unwithered, may plea and sure still join for pleasure. Let love spill over. Thank you.
Wonderful to have poets play with words like that. That's just tremendous. Next, we have Rich Ewald. Ewald. Is that how it's pronounced? Where is he? There he is. Good job. Thanks.
I love it when it keeps trying. If you want to see how brilliant that last poem was, it's on the wall out here, and you can see each word within the next words. Yeah, that's really amazing. This is called Approval. This appears on Sam's Army Navy, and it was a first reader. Yeah, we share a wall on Sam's, which, it's an iconic building, but it is closed. But maybe the last papers that will be on those walls. Right. The place reference in the last line is to the Ruth Stone house, which many of you probably know about. This is approval. The envelope from the bank said I was pre-approved. Didn't even need to open it. You don't question that kind of unconditional love. So I sang and danced only to the drive-through. Watercolored dollars to hang exclusively in their vault. Lettered sonnets for the totals on deposit slips they kept. They said I was making a lot. They gave me all the credit. But they're losing interest now, returning my drafts unopened. So it's time to entice collection agencies to bid on my stack of statements and accounts, or just start printing my own currency on that ancient Goshen letterpress. This is small town America, 4th of July. No Main Street building's been bombed into flames. Fire hoses fountain straight up. A welcome rain for barefoot festivities, hot tarmac on a summer day. In the game, high-pressure water punishes a soccer ball. No fellow citizens oppressed and marching for justice will be hosed back until it's time to release the dogs. The river pumped through hose returns by storm drain to its bouldered bed, bearing the human stain. Returns by storm drain to its bouldered bed, bearing the human stain of sunblock, road salt, shampoo, beer, and petroleum. This long-woke cane walker who'd make of fun awake won't begrudge the deliberately asleep their firework thrills, however cruel that mimicry of artillery shells exploding. Two woodchucks outside of history in a rustling cornfield are startled by odd thunder, bright flashes in the shaking sky. They hurry to their burrow, nothing to salute or surrender, and no one in the ground alive to surrender to. It's the time of year when we do this sort of thing. This is dedicated to a fellow who used to work in a tire shop in Bellows Falls for 50 years. One morning in May. How many times when the snows gave way to summers, or the summers spun over to snows, Have I sat in this waiting room and given myself to a newspaper or magazine? Too many years to count. News of this, news of that, like so many birds on the power line. Well, I shorted out the current flowing through it all. From the other side of a low wall, I watch monkish men perform ceremonies of ritual repetitions. They lift with blackened hands the jacks and hoses, rims and tires as round and imminent as transubstantiated wafers. I confess I've loved the birds, but not the wire. O gods of liminal air, enter me here today at Cheever Tire. Thank you. One more. It's a short one. Angels first. Angels first were ice before they mastered crossing from mist to frost and back across. They passed through air unseen and then seem proof of weather. That must be when I feel a glassy shiver, catch a whiff of frozen feathers. Thank you.
That's a wonderful image of angels. They should be just that way. Next is Henry Zacchini? How do you pronounce it? Zacchini.
This is called war-fed fall. In the late stages of this war-fed empire, fall comes as it does, lazily, without bother. The tips of the trees light up, resplendent in death as they bend to dormancy. Before you know it, the ground is first sprinkled, then inundated with their detritus. How did all this happen? I swear yesterday the leaves were green, the trails barren. Silently they fell, stealthily in the dawning day. In midday they floated earthward as in a dream. And in the deepest azure evening, when all is quiet, listen, you might just hear them touch ground as you lay on the forest's soft blanketed floor and they weep down on you. What could we hope for here? Could our organic accumulation of matter become dormant too? Could we be released from our marriage to slaughter? If only the will to power could let go of the firmament, let go of the terrible yearning, and fall to nameless and unveiled. Thanks. This is called Stick Season, Part 1. You can feel fall arriving in your bones. Those days in late summer serve as a warning of a kind. The cold seeps in. On a walk, you catch your breath. Brace for impact. Assume the position. The trees don't know it's coming, the trees know it's coming, don't they? But then what does knowing mean? Maybe it's that they are prepared. I look at them with focus. They sway but betray nothing. Part 2. Now the part where visiting birds come in flocks, big ones, little ones. People say they're all headed south, but that's not the full story, is it? Look at all those geese huddled up by the hundreds on the side of the lake. They know where they're going. I have no fucking idea. Part 3, the brackish part now. Solitude, bitter quiet, branches shorn of leaves, fewer birds, no bugs, no tourists. Stick season, grab one and beat your back, beat your skull to get some sense into it. See through the forest, inhale deeply the stiff, frozen air, crunch your feet on the frosty floor, and wander past desire. I'm a drummer. This poem's about Buddy Rich. Some of you might know him. Rich in bed, almost dead. Torme, play those bus tapes for me. I told those motherfuckers straight, get your shit together, boys, or it's going to be a long trip. My father says, do you know what people miss as they lay dying? Not sure. The sounds of birds chirping? No, he says. They miss their bodies. They miss using their bodies. Poor Rich, his clothes always fit tight over his monkey body, like they could not contain his virility, like he might just burst the seams at any moment. Mayer says Rich was a virtuoso, one of the best technical musicians to have lived, Horowitz's equal. His solos were stories that led through a universe. He kidnapped people. Those drums made him fucking mad. Everything made him mad. He had to knock on them so he didn't bash more heads. An instrument worth striking with fury. Face red as a punch bowl, cheeks puffed out, sweat pouring down his chin onto the skins. Holding his breath for an entire song, lest something have the audacity to interrupt him. Only mortal drummers need breath. Always first onto the snare, the rim shots, the speed, a maniacal beast scowling like a petulant child, sweltering into the groove. Rich said, "It's a fucking instrument. You don't just bang on it like a goddamn monkey, unless that's what the music calls for." Of course, at times it did. It's called The Storm. We weathered the storm as we slept. The mighty trees swayed as metal turned to rust, as the brook, once docile, flowed mean near its banks, while the old wooden playbox shelter hardly moved, and our dreams, such as they were, held fast to projecting the jittery camera version of our lives, electrical impulses falling in and out of the void, less of a thing than the 100 million raindrops which fell to the earth, unabashed and with abandon.
Thank you, Henry. Very good. This is such fun. I love all the different voices and different tones. Mel Martin.
Three short poems, and I've timed them within 5 seconds of 4 minutes. Maybe. Arsonist in the Wick. Lone candle burns on a makeshift desk, a point of light joining hand to pen to line, sentencing words to stand and be heard. Be mine now and forever, perhaps till some end, through a night that seeks illumination from the flickering glow in sync with wrinkled thoughts, struggling to find their plane. To rein in and corral recalcitrant vowels that evoke foreign tongues, giving rise to the arsonist at work in the wick, setting fire to the mind amid flame's final breath. This was inspired by an article from futurists and scientists who want to revive the extinct species of, like the woolly mammoth. It's called Light from Neo, and Neo is a prehistoric cave in France. Thank you for coming here today to honor me, for honoring my memory and presence on our planet. I join you here in spite of my passing, for I have lived and died 1 billion times, yet live on in my dust and my bones, echoed silently in ancient images on these dark cave walls, by those passed long before, whose life inspired by beasts and moons and heaven's fire. But I do not live in genes and stuff of DNA. I do not ask to be resurrected in labs or tubes of glass, to be revived, reborn, restored in faux relief, to feed your delusions, better rendered extinct. You must be as content as I in the part I played. Its beginning, middle, end, but only the end of aging life, not of stories and legends and rituals, imagination dancing. Let books list my departure and attempt the reasons why. For as long as dreams are bound, I will continue to survive. Ask no more, do no less. Excise all extinctions grand. There are others presently among you who compassion begs to be less a god and more a man. The same man evolved from stars that saw me roam in prehistoric times. Take this as wisdom as you depart from here today. Time only goes forward. And even though I'm of the past, I am here, I am alive. Do not try to save me. Music's spell. Like a tsunami out of the blue, nothing capsizes my heart like music. Those deeply special melodies that immediately close the outer world while opening a universe waiting within. Music that speaks to inner voices aching for companionship, too often left to wander alone. Songs and refrains act as a key unlocking a rare state of being, a reflective state of stillness and calm. I sink into myself and beyond, acquiescing to its peace. Bear with me as I succumb to the tears of joy, tears of sadness, tears welcomed by memories. Suspended by music's breath to float prone to the sky, give me your hand, close your eyes, that I might share this moment sublime. Thank you.
Some of us are very good at timing. He was right. It just. Next is Daniel Hales.
So the poem I'm going to read is in the window of Brattleboro Books. I know for a fact that some of the poets here can relate to this poem, and probably everyone whose last name isn't Jones or Smith can relate to this poem. It's called How to Pronounce My Name. And my name is Daniel Hales, Hales, but it could be Hayes or Hale or Hay or Hales with an apostrophe, depending on who's, anyways, just a little context. How to pronounce my name. If your name ends in sibilants, people may decide you don't get your S unless they see you twice or encounter you and your sister at the same time. They may impose apostrophes on you, air commas, a student once called them, that you don't own or need. If your name contains an L, they may see an I. But why do so many seem to want it to be a Y? Turn hailstones into hay bales. This morning we were talking about something interesting, I guess, while I got dressed, and I forgot to put on my belt. Spent the rest of the day readjusting my waistline, wasting little notches of time realigning my midriff, slowing the spooling drift of my lower half floorward. We wear our swervy words till they've worn us out, forgetting they're just so many wounded sounds weighed down by our shifting hourly wants, yet always failing shorter, leaving lips key-tapping tips with new surplus desires to depend on us for more mistakes. Daniel steps to the curb and hails a cab that's already passing, already has 3 passengers. Thank you. I'm going to read 2 more quick how-to poems. I'm a fan of the instructional poem, but certainly stand up if I go over here. How to deliver a toast. To you, October, what you do to leaves leaves me listening for explosions, tints my butterflies Merlot, fills me up without my consent, puffs me full of auspicions. And to those who live with those they share meals, jeans, and germs with, in houses on streets named for leafy trees, and more specifically to the very old man at a lake's edge trying to reach the stick his golden refused to retrieve, to whatever makes him risk falling in to reach it, the reason this particular whatever stick matters more to the old man than it does to the dog, who now waits bored in the pickup. Especially to whatever pause causes the old man to pause, forgetting the stick, as if listening to the calm waves, drone of distant traffic, assuming hearing aids can even find that frequency, maybe gauging how much is left before all sound ceases. And most of all, to you, lone shiverer, passing lit windows of strangers on Linden Street, rubbing cold blood-filled hands and ghosting your breath. Thank you very much.
And now one more before we take a break. Bev Miller. don't mind, I'm going to read the
Oh.
introduction, which sets the context. Soon after the passing of her son Nick in 2014, Beverly began walking her dog Lola at dawn through the woods and down the dirt roads by her home, praying for the strength to stay immersed in life. Her poem, Merciful Beauty, is one of those prayers. And thank you for reminding me. That's a lovely introduction.
So I'm going to read Bev's poem, and she'll perform it. Merciful Beauty. The shape of merciful beauty is there. In the slow, soft glow of the sun ascending the horizon. In the beckoning arms of the magnificent oak. In the deep, dark tones of the cello. In the eruption of the infant's delighted laughter. It flows from the voice of the waterfall, surging through the stillness of dawn. It surfaces in the breath-taking dreams of touching my child's face once again. Grant me, merciful beauty, that I am not blinded by my despair, that I may know more than my sorrow, that I may be open to the possibilities beyond death, that I may extend my being in connection with what is life-giving, that I may find the threshold to faith in something more than myself, that I may not fear loving again.
That was lovely. Both Bev and Verandah, thank you. That was wonderful. We're going to take a brief intermission, about 10 minutes, and then I'll call you back. We have several more wonderful poets. We are starting out, I already announced him, so he says just say, now here's Chard. Okay, well, this is Chard DeNiord. He was the poet laureate of the state, and he's a wonderful poet and has done several books of poetry, edited things, and we're delighted to have him. So here he comes. Here's Chard.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. Got a little turned around today. This is such a wonderful event every year. Yeah, you did fix that a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to read a few really kind of short poems and then a few from another manuscript that will be coming out, I hope, the end of this year, maybe next year, from Tupelo Press. This one's from Green Writers Press. Dee Dee's been very kind in taking these poems, and I've just been writing these short poems, sometimes, just in the car seat, and going back and taking a look at them. So from the treetops. How to write a line of poetry when the ruling members of Congress keep washing their hands in blood. I started by singing. The winds of nothing tousled my hair. Caw. I forgot the poetry that came so easily at the chemical start, that taught me the calculus of one is other. X is 5, Y is 7, depending on the problem that was always given. I mastered the music of science and feeling, in which the notes and logic were moot and the numbers burned. Swinging rope. I stopped to watch without getting out a group of boys on a riverbank and swinging rope. One with daring gauged his arc from off the slope with one eye closed. Just checking, he said, then gripped the rope without a thought and yelled, Geronimo. The rope gave out a groan beneath his weight as he rose to sky and hung like a bird for a weightless moment, then fell like a stone into a cloud that shone like a ghost on the silver surface of the river's mirror. It's okay. So just a few more from this epigraph for an unwritten poem. I want the words of the poem I've yet to write to read as shredded letters on the page of my blasted heart with tearing sounds of sheet after sheet. So this last one from this curious manuscript is called I Call Out to You. Do you know that problem that Zeno came up with? Zeno, the Greek philosopher, said you can never get where you're going because you're always dividing the whole by halves. Just get it here. So I turned that into a little kind of a metaphor here. I call out to you on the porch to meet me on the path and reach me again. How to solve the distance between you and me is a ground I can cross by canceling the halves when I'm too inclined to think the distance is far too vast by half between you and me, no matter how close we come to each other, but which you find a way to cross by breaking the law of short division and saving me again from minuscule oblivion into which I'd fall without your grasp on the ledge of a half. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read this, just one or two from this other manuscript, which I've called Westminster West. I finally came around, why not just call a manuscript the name of where you are, where you live. It just seemed very appropriate to do that. And I'll start with a poem called, let me just get it here. Thank you for your patience. Why is April Poetry Month anyway? It's a cruel, so does that mean that poetry is cruel? I guess it does, right? What's that? Uh-huh. Okay, so let me just get rid of this manuscript. It's I don't think it's out there in the window, but let me. It is in the window. Okay. Well, I'll read it then. Okay. Let's see. April. There's a new quality in the air, a sweet redolence from the first flowers and pungent odor in the soil emerging from the thaw. That smell that spring passes under your nose to wake you again, more than wake you, stir you in such a way that you recall the irony that kills, the shadow in the droop, the upswing on the ward. How strangely and therefore divinely your mind suddenly turns in its thinking of your soul as a cloud that assumes a panoply of mystical forms, including a Chinese mirror in which your body suddenly appears as a vast array of creatures, ant, trout, hawk, gazelle, and so on. You laugh and a flower blooms beside a door in a meadow that opens onto a darkness so deep no light can light it, that is the zero by which everything in the world is multiplied at dusk. Thank you. So I guess this is the last one. This is with a bone in my heart. Only the lull I like. Do you all know who said that? Only the lull I like. That was Walt Whitman. I sat in the pew of piled up stones in the hedgerow where a crow cried out to me in ribald cause to listen, listen. So I did until the raw, explosive syllables of the crow blessed my voice with the sound of sky, which I had forgotten and remembered now with a bone in my heart, which was also a tuning fork that rang in the lull like a star. I was moved, therefore, to hum the score of cause back to the crow on his mercy seat of a long dead limb that scratched the sky and made it bleed a sudden rain from swollen clouds that floated by like notes to the oldest song that silence sings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chard. Noticing you adjusting the speaker, I've been asked, please, to ask you all, when you're reading, read into the mic and try to speak to the people at the far end of the room, because it's very helpful if you can hear. Not all of us can hear as well as we once did, so it's a help. Laurie Black works in international education with a focus on undergraduate research, climate change, and the ocean. This is likely the first poem she has written since grade school, and certainly the first that has ever been published in any format. Yay! Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you to everyone involved in making this event happen. I'm quite shocked to find myself here in many different ways. I've always been a words person, but really more of the sense of being like a grammar freak or a spelling nut, and a Wordle and a Scrabble player. So this whole poetry scene is very new to me. I've lived in Vermont for over 30 years, and the last 25 on a magical spot on Packers Corner Road. And in the last year, I have found that my life has come to a crossroads, and that's what this poem is about. It's called Separate Lives in Vermont. Here one day, gone the next. Drama, no drama. What they did, what she said. Love as a special friend. Nothing lasts forever. Time marches on. I still have the beautiful view. That's it.
Laurie, I sincerely hope that this is not only the first, but it will not be the last. Keep at it. That was very nice. Next, we have Jennifer Audette, who delighted to say has just moved next door to us in Guilford. So, please.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to say thank you to Arlene and all the people involved in putting together Poems Around Town, and to Brooks for hosting us, and just for everybody being here to sort of honor and celebrate as a community that act of poetry. Also, I'm going to read 2 poems today, and I also brought the last 9 copies of a little handmade book that I did with a friend of mine. They're over there on the table. I'll be here for a couple minutes after if anybody wants to look at them or buy one. At Kilburn Pond, facing southwest, late September. Water, the shadowed part, where sun and wind play together, ripples shiver, abyss and glitter. Desire is attraction, with surrender, no guarantee. But today, body gives in, into quiet lake. Top of head, loud cracks through the world's first mirror. Realms crossed, air into water, dry becomes wet, ears engulfed, breath held, so heart must be the one to gasp. I hadn't planned on this. I stripped and dove in, all skin. Thanks. Ratatouille. Today, I rang up an old woman's produce, tomatoes, bell pepper, zucchini, an eggplant so fresh from the field, its barbs pricked the tip of my finger. Making ratatouille for the first time in her life, she said, woke from a dream with the want of it, and here she was. I packed vegetables into her frayed tote, bottom littered with creased receipts and dog treats, my thoughts mired in the what and who and how of my own want, a pebble of need under my tongue. And then the woman was saying how last week when those rains came hard for hours, how the water rose in the ditch beside her house, how usually it was but a trickle of a thing, how she couldn't sleep for the racket, how she stood, nighty soaked in the relentless pitch of it, how she heard, and here she paused, thumped her hand against her chest, bracelets jiving, how she didn't so much hear them tumbling down the streambed as felt those boulders thunder. I offered her the receipt. She shooed it away and shouldered her bag. Tonight, a wise woman marries want with have and savors her own ratatouille for the first time, while I worry desire side to side, trying to name the flavor that clicks against my teeth. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Very nice. Next is Judy Fink.
Thank you. I love that I'm sandwiched between Jen and Francis. It's great. I also will have a visual aid in just a second. My intro is actually longer than the poem. So I've lost count of the number of quilts that I've made and given away. I sewed my first quilt in my early 20s. I didn't have a sewing machine. I didn't have a lot of money. So I found orphan fabric pieces and sewed a wobbly and unattractive quilt by hand and gave it to my parents for their 30th wedding anniversary. They cherished it in all its ugliness. I made a quilt for my father to remind him of me in his last years in memory care. I made a quilt for my friend to comfort her and keep her warm during her ordeal with chemotherapy. And the wedding quilts and the baby quilts. Quilting is an exercise in precision and focus. Unlike with cooking or with writing, mistakes are difficult and sometimes impossible to undo. This came clear to me during the early months of COVID. I used scraps from previous projects to fashion together houses and trees and sew them. I was unsettled and unhappy, and the quilt was chaotic. This poem is about my newest quilt, which is for my dear friends and their baby, who will be born in May. Sir, would you care to share the quilt? The poem is called Patterns. The quilt is destined to embrace the beloveds, swaddle the newborn, soothe the sick. Isolated upstairs, I dug through piles of random orphaned fragments. I fashioned uninhabitable houses and falling over trees, a riot of color and shape. In morning light, my fingers guide the layers of fabric through the sewing machine. The cotton sucks moisture from my hands. My knuckles protrude. Tiny pinpricks circle the cuticles. I craft a new pattern, carefully cut, piece, and stitch. Press the seams together and apart. I pour my heart into red, blue, green, and yellow shapes. Precious tiny girl, little bean.
We're all given to metaphors. And I think that was a metaphor for what we're doing here today. All of these bits of language and understandings and visions quilted together. How beautiful it is. Francis Herbert, December 2nd, 2022. My mother, Maria Poma Herbert, left my world. Although she lived 800 miles away, I saw her often. We were very close. She was with me for my first breath. I was with her for her last. I spent many hours in the memorial meditation room in my home the first 6 months after she departed. I listened. She channeled her energy through my pen and actions. It has been a gut-wrenching transition, and yet I feel her presence daily. Francis.
Thank you all for being here, listening and sharing. The memorial room I named the Mom-morial room. Is anyone here a gardener? And as I've already heard, I know there are people here who have had death in their life. I know there are people here who have had death in their life. So then, let's sink in and settle. Path of grief. At first, dwindled, small, shrunken, not even one, maybe half. Today, like a beet seed, multiplied, growing round, rich, earthy, under a layer of darkness, moving deeper into nurturing organisms. Blended blood-green thin stems leaf out above. The path is below and on the surface, in darkness and in light. From one seed to many, touching, reaching. Which ones shall be thinned to make room for a robust burgundy bulb? Growing, growing, oh so deeply, becoming whole. After a conversation I had with a friend, Mom spoke. Grieving doesn't mean something's wrong with me. It doesn't mean I need to be fixed or need a therapist or need to sell my house or need to take a pill, an anti-mourning pill. Say no. I want my grief to flow through all my cells, to settle. I want my grief to be felt, heard, seen, touched, loved, celebrated. I want my grief to be alive within this great death. This mourning for my familiar clan that has lost its chief is like a beehive without its queen. Frantic, searching, aimless, restless. Now I'm going in concentric circles back to myself with all this vibrating energy. Yet, slowing, like being in a labyrinth, oscillating, landing in the center of stillness. There is nothing wrong with me. This honest, open sadness embraces and honors you. I mourn with confidence and courage, unapologetically. Love requires nothing less.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you very much, Judy. Francis, Keith Maxwell next.
I have two, they're variations on a theme. Wonder of my ancient world. She stalks my dream, no inhibition holds her. We run through hanging gardens maze, its bowel confusion. Her pursuit hot and close into the wilderness. Studied in her indifference, she is my dysphemic whore of Babylon. Haunted hunting through ancient city streets, Nippur, Uruk, Eridu, and Kish, through storied civilizations, Amorite, Assyrian, Kassite. I'm chased and chased past Babili, the gate of God. On to Babel, on to Ur, my soul eclipsed by want and need. Agape storage in philia? No, eros indeed. I'm synecdochic, asshole prick, she, blue eyes crying in the rain. In dreams of life and death, I Babylon, Alha, goodbye. Dismiss Charon and row myself across. This morning I had cause to reflect on that poem, and I came to dislike it somewhat, so I wrote an alternative, a variant of it. So this is called Wonder of My Ancient World Redux. Weary though I am, behold, I am alive in my ancient world. Haunted reverie, nostalgic pain, escapes me. The petty morts presage my journey from penumbra into darker realm. Yet my DNA enforces relentless defiance. Emotion pulls to omega. Nature requires alpha. The body-mind drifts, gamma to rho, epsilon to sigma. Karen waits in somber silence. My pockets have no coin. I pay him with a dismissive wave and row myself across. Thank you.
And next is is Michael Fleming, who's the editor of our wonderful book on the history of Brattleboro and the tradition of publishing. And got copies of the book right over there that you should see. It's really an interesting book. Mike.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Arlene, very much for putting all this together. You do a lot of work, and look what we get. 3 short poems. The first one is at Mitchell Giddings. Tricycle in the Woods. It haunts me, that tricycle in the woods, abandoned there many decades ago by a kid like me. And if that trike could talk, it would say with bitterness, I know you left me for a bicycle, forgot about your 3-wheeled friend, forgot about finding me under the tree, how you fought with your sister for the first ride and shouted, mine, it's mine. I was shiny and new, and already you dreamed of flying fast and far, rocketing down the hills. It's true, you had your fun, then left me here to rust back into the earth. So, do I remind you of anything else you've left behind? This one's at Stevens and Associates over across the street. The Institute Woods. The news was an unpredicted eclipse. Her light snuffed out nearly 2 years before. Too young, the memorial read. All the more unsettling to recall our first few trips into the woods at night, into a new kind of darkness we'd both been longing for. I didn't know where I was going, nor did she. We went there hand in hand, the two of us whispering the names of the stars, inventing our story, how it would sound when all the words were right. Everything dies, I said, and we laughed. Show me your scars, she said, and we laughed, suddenly surrounded by a slow dancing sparkle of fireflies. Bags and tools. I filled my bags with lumps of lead and stumbled underneath the load. Soon, when I was nearly dead, I met a beggar on the road. He drew me near and shut one eye. Give me your lead, I'll give you gold. I thought of all the things I'd buy and left him there with what I'd sold. My bags were lighter than before, but still my tired back was bent. I found an ironmonger's store, and soon that shiny gold was spent. And now, at last, I can begin with iron tools of every kind. I'll dig a hole and throw them in and leave those bags and tools behind. Thank you.
So nice. Sue Aldridge had the good luck to have been experimented on as a kid. Teachers and student teachers tried out all sorts of unorthodox teaching methods. They let us write poetry to learn spelling. Sometimes I find poetry the perfectly portable, expressive medium, and sometimes I paint or sculpt, which is what I taught for 40 years.
This is only the second year that I've participated in this, and like someone else, it feels very new. Is that better? Okay. Closer to, how's that? This one is in the window at the Thai restaurant. Stone fruit. Stone fruit doesn't mean fruit made of stone, like the agate watermelon slices that adorn my dining table. Dried bougainvillea blossoms scattered over them, lavender pink and papery, like an old woman's eyelids. A delicate study in contrast. No, stone fruit is a hardness within at heart, like fascism. And this one is at the co-op. Hear me. I fear I am losing the capacity to listen to myself. Etiolated like seedlings reaching out for light, my fingernails cry out, catching on fabric, inviting me to chew them, preventing me from picking up drop pins. Fractured, clicking like dog toenails, interrupting touch, couching nerves in unsatisfying lack of sensory contact. Unsettling the nerves that reach from fingertip to brain, draining the healing power of connectedness. The nerves run up my arms like fraying ropes on an ancient swing. My hands grasp, knowing fray will lead to break long before the branch gives way and limb leaves trunk, and crown reaches out for sky, for light, for growth. The heartwood lasts the longest. Leaves drop, branches wither and die, crown fails, and finally even heartwood disintegrates, knowing it has done its best, and trusts what it has left behind: acorn, button ball and cones, maple whirligig, ashwing, nuts of butternut and hickory, and tenacious black locust cloned by root. And I'm going to end with the one that I didn't read because I wasn't brave enough last year. This was on the Boys and Girls Club last year. Grace to remember. I forgot to comb my hair, forgot to brush the dog. I forgot to stand beneath the stars and listen to night's song. I even slept through dawn's sweet kiss to pink the world awake. I forgot to thank the blue eyes that greet me every morn, and I forgot to tell my children I'm so glad that they were born.
Next we have Tina Olson.
Just turned my cell phone off, which is where all my poetry is, so what to say? I used to write and write and write. Well, I'm waiting for the phone to come on, and somehow it would not stop, and I would write these huge things. So now I use the phone with the notes, and it helps me to basically write in a haiku form. So, okay, now they're back on. Okay. I'm cleaning house where I breathe. My lungs opening up space. You are out getting cough syrup, elderberry. I'm not here anymore in that house of the dead bird. My sister with ashes in her hair. He's dead, and I'm with you. And he had no clue and was broken. He was like a wisp of straw. South Pond. I'm growing old here. Beside this pond, these trees, and I'm glad here. I'm at peace here, where the loon calls. I have painted here, written poetry. I have read and gotten stronger here by the forest and the water. Sky came here. First, when I was sick, we put up the stained glass, which was yellow. And the light was yellow, and sunflowers bloomed. Big from the screened-in porch where we slept, and the reindeer came once, and so did a blue indigo bunting. Into this small box, I put the words to say out the window, to reach the small branches, holding last year's snow and silence the last cough of my sickness, coughed over crimes and memories, unfinished, still too wretched to give up entirely, whose power cuts me back into childhood's prison, that prison which I must leave again, as I have so many times before. Freud said, we repeat it, the crime, until we get it right. Until I look into your eyes and I see your stepson and see nothing but the surviving soul of a tormented child, until I can see myself and redeem myself. It's something about reading your own poetry that's revelationary. I don't know. Anyway, it's thrilling. So happy to be here. Okay. I like mud, I like clay, I paint, I like to move it around, I like plowing things up. The things I know about myself already, but are too difficult to reach except through the paint. I use my hands to touch it, to hold it. My ancestors were farmers, so am I. I farm with the paint, and I bring forth the fruit of my soul. I just realized that the other day. My father's side were Mennonite farmers, and we moved here. But I realize I paint, I'm very much like that. I enter into the silence of my singing body and the sounds of my mind clanking, the doubt, the confusion, judgment, and joy, songs that teach me that I am not you and you are not me. But we are so much alike, a sanctuary together within ourselves and each other. I think that's it.
Well, as Tina just said, reading your own poetry is thrilling. And to hear a community reading its poetry is just that much more thrilling. It's amazing to me. Maya Faerstein-Weiss, here she comes.
Hi. This first poem is called Burning the Hametz, which, for reference, is something that some Jews do during Passover, where they burn the leavened bread and items in their home that are forbidden at that time. So that's the context. Smoke over Grand Street, and oh no escapes from me as a bleary yawn. The fire trucks behind the flaming can, behind the raised remains of the riverbank that is being raised against the impending floods, and in front of the men in their yarmulkes, and the women in their skirts, the child with the giant oven mitts on, and my elevator mate's wry assurance, we do this every year, and somebody always calls the cops. My cousins in Israel roll their eyes at Hasidic liturgy and embrace their God-given right to soil they were told was barren before their arrival. They stand on the perch of their whiteness, a shaking stone on slanted ground, and champion the vision of the Arab terrorist, which includes, of course, the grandmother terrorist and the baby terrorist, and all the terrorists who dare to exist in the place they have existed for generations. My cousins champion the extermination of these people on the wings of their own Holocaust. I can boast that I do not speak to them anymore, but in fact, this takes little sacrifice, as I never really did to begin with. This being the consequence of a diaspora I have found, all in all, to not be such a great curse, after all, as here, in this one of many pockets, leavened dough flakes and blackens, as our neighbors rid themselves of all that no longer serves them. And this is called The Arcade at the End of the World. It's hung up in front of Altiplano. The arcade at the end of the world is identical to the arcade of the 1990s, recalled through a sticky glaze of blue raspberry, apolitical nostalgia, commercials that shout, candies that gush, holy affinity for speed and slime. In the arcade at the end of the world, you can eat cheeseburgers and discuss whether this whole thing is just cyclical, apocalyptic paranoia, every generation their secular demons of end times. Not an acceleration, but a cycle, menstrual, lunar, life, soothingly untouchable and biological, and ultimately benign. You can illustrate this point by swirling a dinosaur-shaped chicken nugget in circles in a pool of ketchup in the arcade at the end of the world. The photo booth in the arcade at the end of the world is out of service. The crane is a heinous improbability. The whoopee cushion costs 1,000 points, and there is orange vomit in the bathroom, but the deal outside is reliably worse. At the arcade at the end of the world, if you are persistent and have good hand-eye coordination and drop enough cash, you can win a sticky little squid, and you can hurl it at the wall, and it will stick with everything it's made of until slowly, limb by rubber limb, it falls. And I have one more short one. It's called Stuck Between. Thank you. Your cruelty is blunted in moments of indecision. Not so much the mountainous variety, partnerships consecrated or annulled, aging parents moved, the cat put down, but rather the peach or the plum, shaken, stirred, or even the word tripped over as another slips out at the same time. In times like these, although few and far between, it is difficult to hate you, and my own identity as it waltzes briefly with yours goes fizzy and spills a little with the vertigo of changing direction. That's it. Thank you.
And next is Ray Clark, who has a collection of poetry that he is hoping to have published by Green Writers Press by perhaps the Literary Festival or sometime soon. Ray?
Good to see see that poetry is doing well here in Brattleboro.
As Andy said, I am reading a few poems from a book which is coming out, which is titled Here and There. So what I'll read today are 3 poems from Here. There is rather far away. So, Wantasticate Mountain. In October, hard after 3 days of gray rain, the last hour of a Monday afternoon, the pavement splattered with drowned leaves. Against the steel sky, ripping apart the torn wild clouds, the mountain glowed cold in mid-October gold. In winter, the uncovered sun blossomed a cold January rose against the nude mountain, stubbled with trees, picked bare of leaves, its snow skin not hiding the truth of scant soil on a massive bulge of unearthly mineral matter, frozen in shape since before the time of occasional Abenakis even. In April, tinges of green appear where the mountain is shedding its late winter dullness and grasping the sun's springtime rays. Soon it will flower and show us a new and different beauty, inviting celebration. We go, but not to climb, just along the old road that clings to the mountain's steepness and then drops to the ever-present river, flowing along from one winter toward another summer. In August, it sits in the late summer, its soil a sponge that slowly sweats away the wetness stored since December's snows. Soon its oaks will brown, their leaves will fall, but still, there is time for one last walk to the top, where we can see our corner of the world, where we can see the place where 3 states meet at a river bend, our part of the valley, our part of Earth, unique. Always like that word unique, and try not to misuse it. Seeing Ambegog, we were shown the way and turned when told, eyes mostly on the winding road, climbing, dipping, past places, glimpsed, until the faraway state offered a pull-off, nicely manicured, with info tablets explaining the view of lake upon lake called Rangeleys. Back the same way we came, but then not the same. We take an untraveled road that led us along an unknown pond with unknown people looking to see who we might be. And then on, grinding through gravel to the start, but not yet real travel, until traced on a map. Then we could see what we had seen on Route 17, with a landscape of lakes, and among them, not easy to say, Ambegog. Names. Goldenrod and Queen Anne's lace strike me as strange names for yellow and white, plants that flower and creep into the roadside scene, replacing black-eyed Susan. Susan who, I wonder? Further north, they have names in French. Jaune et blanc, I suppose, not knowing but the yellow jaune and white blanc. Enter the eye nameless and equally, but nameless, I wonder. And speaking of names, the other day I was asked its name as she pointed to an unknown self-starting plant, a weed, no doubt, but I had no name for it, and still I don't. But I need a name to capture it. After all, I am a namer. And so was someone else, somewhere, some time ago, a someone like me with a name. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. We have 3 people who signed up just as they arrived, and first is Maddie Adams.
Thank you. My 2 poems around town. The Cow and the Fly. The cow was spotted in the lower meadow, camouflaged by birch and cherry. Moo, she bellowed, so people thought a tugboat had sailed up Broad Brook. Moo! It may not be discontent or loneliness. She found the grass there sweet and long, the dandelions that make her pee. Our Gertrude, she wasn't lost, only went places on a cow's time. I walked in the woods, sat on a log, watched the wind toss the treetops. My fingers smell of sticky sap, clearing pine boughs snapped by winter weight. Black fly, you are eager. Your life is so short. Go on, take a bite. My life is too so short, 3 blinks of an eye. I walk home. All the more reason to allow what is to be, to know what matters is in being. Cow and fly, I see you. I do not change you. In being, you have shown me what matters is just being. Thank you. That's at Beatniks. And poets, if you're looking for something to write, you've got writer's block. Go down into the cellar there. They have a whole room full of old mojo. You will write words. This is Bow Our Heads, which is at Tavernier Chocolates. Let us bow our heads as we would, remembering the dead in the church courtyard. Let us pull up our crown hands to Anjali to say goodbye to a singular word. Language is as life, impermanent. Deserving burial grief, may it yet be reborn. We are here today to honor coincidence, overused and faded, explaining away the invisible. Born like us, at first untarnished, it was alignment magic, things occupying the same space. Coincidence became excuse for outside of science fact, diminishing life to strictly measurable. Let us bow our heads, praise be to things that have been called coincidence. Let us pull up our crown. Coincidence is not spectacular, ever, random, just is. Let us know the word as the way of the universe, that occupying the same space is the divine connection. Thank you.
So I'm having fun. It is past 4 o'clock. If people feel that they have to leave or anxious to leave, I don't think anybody will be insulted, but we have 3 more people. Sky Stevenson.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for staying, and thank the organizers as well. So I'm going to be reading 3 poems from a recent poetry book I put together. I call them a collection of poem prayers. And there's some poems I kept putting aside for a bunch of years because I thought they were a little too optimistic and positive. I did all sorts of heavy poems recently, but it kept coming back to me in dreams that they wanted to come out into the world. So I call it Heart of the Universe 21 in the Tower. And one of the poems, the first one I'll read, is in Mocha Joe's. And you can't really see it, but it kind of has a visual shape to it. Live simply, live close to the earth. Enjoy life with all its mirth. Live high, live close to the sky. Fly on eagle wings to where your desires roam. Live close to your home, live tight to your clan. Live without an ambitious plan. Live to enjoy the new dawn when the lone star touches your breast. Live on the soil without any toil. Live in your place in your sacred space that's as high and as wide as an infinite wave that crashes upon you without water or sand, caressing your hands that touch my eyelids, asleep with the now of your loving me. So this is another poem in the group. This is a time for silence, silence of the soul. This is a time for wisdom, wisdom of the heart. This is the moment you've been waiting for, the reason you were birthed, to help redress humanity, to help support the earth. This is the time for hope. This is the time for lament, to review all we have said and done as we move forward to create a new earth. This is an era ending. This is another yet to begin, balanced as we are on the seesaw of all life. This is a time of sacrifice, to offer up what no longer works, lessons gained, lessons learned for all of us humans walking on the earth. We don't know about tomorrow, but then again, we never do. All you can ever know is that I am always loving you. So go out today, solid and strong. Call upon the mountains, call upon the stars. Call upon your ancestors deep and so wise to brush off the spiraling paths of your tomorrows, one simple step at a time, unfolding our destinies, unhewn and true. And am I done? I think so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sky. Two more. Let's go with Steve Minkin, please. And I am going to be timing because we're out of time.
Okay, this first poem is called My Fears, November 19th, 2023. I fear the chaos in thought, the unexpected, unexamined chaos in thought. I fear the inhumanity, its power to shape events. I fear the impossibility of pausing, stepping back from the static. I fear ambient projectiles blowing up dreams. I fear the extinction of the commandment, thou shalt not kill. I fear bombs and cruelty, the cries of child ghosts in shrouds. I fear the deniers, the justifiers. I fear the indifference. Shoelaces. I keep tying and untying my shoelaces, splitting hairs over definitions in the absence of meanings, like little dolls bundled preterm on the hospital floor, cold like the memories of tortured pasts, genocide, holocausts, 8 million then, now unimaginable, to the point of forgetting where we came from, why we are here.
Thank you, Steve. And let us finish up with Ed Burke. And let me suggest that, when we're finished, there are still more poems on the windows. Just go up and down Main Street and look.
so wonderful. Another year of enjoying you folks so much, your perspectives, your brilliance, and new folks hearing you for the first time. A genuine pleasure. I love this community very much. This poem is on the window at Vermont Market, and when revisiting it for preparing for this morning, this is iteration number 4, which is not on the window, but it's a rewrite, a la this morning. We are lovers. We are lovers. We love. The calm, the sea, within my ribs, each other, forever, the tides, the rise and ebb, the time now. Each touch, smile, to come unknown, gentle kindness, the light, affirmation, the radiance, inspired, held, word meant, offered, reflected, caring, listening, caring, listening, received, listened, heard, cherished, each touch, we, facets of a whole, are this. We are this. Thank you.
So on that lovely note, we are this. I'm so glad everybody was here. If anybody has the strength to help us stack up a few chairs, that would be nice. And we hope to have people contribute next year. Thank you.